Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Senate President Faisal Al-Fayez praised the strong Jordanian-United Arab Emirates relations during a meeting with an Al Maktoum Foundation delegation. Fayez thanked Sheikh Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Deputy Ruler of Dubai, Chairman of the Foundation, for his humanitarian charitable work, including his support to such projects in Jordan. The delegation is in Jordan to provide support to a number of charitable organizations in the kingdom's various governorates and find out the needs of the Jordan Hashemite Charity Organization for possible assistance in the future. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Ayman Safadi discussed the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and the financial crisis facing the United Nations Relief and Works Agency UNRWA with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York. The two also discussed the U.S. decision over Jerusalem, with Safadi briefing the World Body Chief on the outcome of the meeting of the Arab ministerial team that was tasked with following up on the repercussions of the decision, recognizing the Holy City as Israel's capital and moving its embassy there. Safadi and Guterres said UNRWA should continue offering services to Palestinian refugees despite the UN agency facing an escalating financial crisis following the U.S.'s decision to withhold $65 million of the $125 million it was going to give the agency. And on the Syrian crisis, both stressed that the only way to a political solution to the crisis is through the Geneva process based on UN Resolution 2254. Also in New York, Safadi met with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. The two discussed ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation and intensify coordination efforts to resolve regional crises, particularly the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and the Syrian crisis. Safadi and Lavrov stressed the importance of the upcoming summit between His Majesty and the Russian President in Moscow that aims to strengthen relations and deepen cooperation and resolve regional crises. Safadi briefed Lavrov on the outcome of the Arab ministerial meeting and the Syrian crisis, where both highlighted the importance of the Russian-American-Jordanian dialogue to reduce escalation in South Syria. Separately, Safadi and Kuwaiti First Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sabah Khalid Al-Hamad Al-Sabah discussed ways of increasing coordination and cooperation in various fields and agreed to hold a meeting of the Joint Committee in a soon-to-be-determined date. Safadi and Al-Sabah also discussed regional developments, especially the Palestinian issue, in light of the U.S. decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Turkish warplanes struck 108 targets belonging to Kurdish fighters hours after it launched an operation against the U.S.-backed Kurdish militia in Syria's Afrin province. Turkey's army said the operation had started in Afrin to provide safety to the country's borders and the region. Turkey had been shelling militia shelters and hideouts in Afrin for 2 days ahead of its declaration of a military operation today. Meanwhile, Russia said it will support Syria diplomatically and will demand at the United Nations that Turkey halt its military operation. Direct military action against territory held by Kurdish militia opens a new front in Syria's civil war. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence kicked off his Middle East tour in Egypt with talks with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Talks focused on bilateral ties, efforts to fight terrorism, as well as a range of issues of mutual concern between the United States and Egypt. Pence's tour will also take him to Jordan and Israel. This weekend was supposed to be a celebration for U.S. President Donald Trump, the first anniversary of his presidency. But the U.S. Congress failed to reach a deal on funding for federal agencies, causing the government to shut down. This is the first shutdown since October 2013, which lasted 16 days. Republican and Democratic leaders are expected to renew negotiations today in the hope of restoring government financing before Monday. Here's a story.
The government shutdown was 100% avoidable.
The United States government begins to shut down as Congress fails to reach a deal to keep the money flowing. Lawmakers engaged in a frantic round of last-minute negotiations on the Senate floor for more than an hour and a half, but failed to reach a deal before funding expired at midnight. That means thousands of federal workers are likely to be furloughed for the second time in less than 5 years. The shutdown comes on the one-year anniversary of President Trump's inauguration. Democrats accuse Trump of bad faith negotiations on immigration, while Republicans say Democrats are prioritizing illegal immigrants over law enforcement and national security.
Well, there's only one reason we ended up here: the shoehorning of illegal immigration into this debate.
Democrats say Republicans are dragging their feet on a promise to protect young immigrants who entered the country illegally as children. Some 700,000 of these so-called dreamers face possible deportation starting in March because Trump removed protections that had been put in place by President Obama.
Paul Bocuse, one of France's most celebrated chefs, died at the age of 91. Bocuse was a leading figure in the path-breaking culinary movement known as Nouvelle Cuisine, which reinterpreted traditional French cooking using less butter and cream and focusing on fresh ingredients and stylish presentation. His signature dishes not only please the palate, they also seduce the eye and pique the imagination. He parlayed celebrity into a restaurant empire that extended beyond France to embrace the United States and Japan. To sports, 22 North Korean athletes will participate in next month's Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in South Korea in 3 sports and 5 disciplines. At the headquarters of the International Olympic Committee in Lausanne, Switzerland, the 2 Koreas signed an agreement for the Winter Games participation. Under the agreement, the North and South will march under a single flag at the opening ceremony and would field a united team in the women's ice hockey. 3 North Koreans will compete in the cross-country skiing and another 3 in the alpine skiing, slalom and giant slalom events.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes today's ceremony.
The Olympic Games are always about building bridges.
Americans Kyle Smain and Britta Sigourney took top spots in the halfpipe World Cup on Mammoth Mountain, California. Smain came away with an unexpected win after scoring 92.20, followed by Alex Ferreira and Toreen Yatter-Wallace in 2nd and 3rd places, respectively. In the women's event, it was Britta Sigourney who proved victorious, scoring 91.20. 2nd place was taken by Maddie Bauman, and Devin Logan came in 3rd.
Starting off with a nice straight air into the mute grab. Going huge on that left alley-oop. Into the left 9 with the tail grab there. Alley-oop 540. Britta skiing really well right now. Left 540. Right 720. Puts it down. Another beautiful.
And finally, for a quick look at the weather, a further rise in temperature is expected, though it remains relatively cold across the kingdom. Amman tomorrow can expect a high of 14 degrees Celsius, dropping down to 5 at night. Further south in the Gulf of Aqaba, moderate conditions prevail, with a high of 24 degrees and a low of 12. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night.